Soon you will be enacting your very first Which One Doesn't Belong math routine. This short video is going to share tips for supporting students and meeting the learning goal during those routines. The goal of the math routine is to get students talking about math and moving them towards a lesson goal. My first tip is, if the conversation isn't naturally leading towards the lesson's goal, you need to pose questions to steer the conversation in that direction. For example, if you're teaching a lesson that's centered around finding the area of rectangles and students just aren't talking about the area, you might say something like, "What do you notice about the area of these shapes?" Or, "How might we compare the space inside each shape?" If conversations aren't naturally leading towards the lesson goal, it is our job as a teacher to nudge them in that direction. Math routines are a great time to practice using appropriate mathematical vocabulary. We want to reinforce that vocabulary naturally within the context of the discussion. For example, for a lesson focused on noticing factors of a given number, we want students to use the word factor in their explanations. So there's a couple ways we can do that. One of them is to actually use it yourself and say something like, "Did anyone notice anything about the numbers you would multiply to get these products? We call those numbers you multiply factors." Or, if a student is describing a factor in their explanation but doesn't actually use that vocabulary word, we could say, "Great observation. We call those numbers that multiply together factors." As teachers, we've got to support students in learning to use that vocabulary. They're going to pick it up when we use it. My third tip is that during the discussion, students should be providing evidence that they've met the learning goal. It's our job as a teacher to guide the conversations towards that learning goal instead of telling. So, the teacher is not summarizing what students should have done. That means that the teacher is actually demonstrating the learning goal, not the student. Instead, we need to allow the students to do most of the talking. We want to encourage our students to explain their reasoning and to make connections through the questions that we pose. So here's an example from a lesson focused on finding the area of rectangles. We might ask questions like, "How did you find the area of the two colored rectangles? How could you apply the strategy to find 12 times 7? Notice, instead of me telling students what they should have learned, my questions are moving them towards noticing how you can decompose a factor to make multiplication easier in finding products.